Welcome to VIVIANEART. I am Viviane Mehr, founder, owner of the gallery, and I'm really excited to be here tonight and to have some of you join us to celebrate this beautiful exhibition of all new paintings, and we have some beautiful sculptures, by Mikhail Miller and Rachel Ziriada.
Hi, thank you, Viviane.
Mikhail and Rachel are an artist collaboration entitled Nasarimba, and that is also the title of this exhibition. I'm going to get my cameraman here to do a quick walkthrough of the show so our guests have a chance to see the entire exhibition before we have too much of a conversation about the work. So as he wanders around, I just want to give you a little bit more of an introduction. VIVIANEART has been around nearly 8 years now, and it's always been an important part of our mandate to support emerging Canadian talent. And as a part of that, I've been really honored to take part in the RBC Emerging Artists Program for the last number of years. And that's how I met Rachel and Mikhail. So Rachel and Mikhail attended a presentation in the gallery last fall, and we did a portfolio review. And one of the first thoughts I had was, what the hell are these two doing in an emerging artist program? Very talented duo of artists who are primarily recognized in Calgary, I believe, for their mural work. There are murals by Nasarimba all over this city, across Canada, and also in Mexico City. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but just to give you a bit of background about them, Mikhail graduated with his Bachelor of Fine Arts from the Alberta University of the Arts in 2006. Rachel graduated with her Bachelor of Fine Arts from the University of Victoria in 2015. And I believe it was shortly after that time that they began an artistic collaboration and a little bit more of a partnership, as I understand as well. So as Kelly is coming around with the camera, he's showing you the last two pieces, and then we're going to come back to where we started, and I'm going to ask Mikhail and Rachel to talk a little bit about Nasarimba, how long they've been collaborating, and the roots of this wonderful collection of work. And then we'll get into these pieces in a little more detail. Before we do that, shall we just toast? Because this is, in fact, I believe, your first solo commercial presentation of work. Yes?
Yes.
It absolutely is.
Cheers.
Thank you, Viviane.
And congratulations. So one of you, I'll let you decide who can start, but can we talk a little bit about Nasarimba, what that means and where that started?
Sure. Sure. Hi, everyone. Yeah, we met in Victoria in 2014, and we were able to work together. We soon realized that our aesthetics and our way of thinking of art really aligned. When I saw Rachel's grad piece, actually, at UVic, I was blown away by just the work she had done. She had this full room installation, and you could walk around and interact with all these different elements. And I just, it really clicked that, like, I really had a similar aesthetic visually, and I recognized that in Rachel's work. And soon after that, we had some opportunities to collaborate, doing an installation in a gallery setting. And once we did that, we really knew we worked well together. Yeah.
Yeah, so our first show we worked on together was in Victoria at the 50/50. It's an art collective there. And I had applied when we were in Montreal the previous summer and got in to do a show. And after having done some brief work with Mikhail and having had some conversations about art and the way we want to work, I decided to invite him to collaborate with me on that show. And yeah, 5 years later, we're here. And in that time, we've done a lot of different projects and worked in a lot of different mediums. And Nasarimba is a word that to us means mischief. It's a made-up word, but we like to keep that spirit in our work no matter what it is, what medium it is. A little bit of a playful mischief. So that's Nasarimba.
And was that a collaboration as well, coming up with that name?
Yeah.
Or is one of you going to
well-
claim ownership?
Well, my family's Romanian, and I had asked some family friends the Romanian word for mischief, and it's not Nasarimba. It kind of got lost in translation, but
Nazuri.
I think it's,
believe.
yeah, Nazuri, something like that.
And it's like a sense of, it's like a word in Romanian for that, like playful mischief. Like it's like a saying
Yeah,
that they have, like,
Yeah.
to capture that kind of like.
yeah, that childish energy almost, you know, and I had told Mikhail about that word and been using it a little bit, but Mikhail really, it resonated with him, and he really encouraged us to keep using that.
Yeah, like, oh, that would be a great name to use. And it's really been an asset, I feel, to use like a moniker for our work. Yeah, it's something that we can both get behind and use in different ways.
You're like a rock band.
Yeah.
It separates the ego a little bit too from the work as an artist. You know, it's not, our names aren't necessarily attached to everything, and I think we both value that anonymity a little bit. As we've, you know, coming into a commercial presence, I think it's important that we do use our names, but it's been a good, it's been just a force behind us.
It's nice to have a bit of mystery sometimes, you know?
Absolutely. And this feels like a really good time, doesn't it, for a little playful mischief?
Sure, yeah.
Like we're just coming out of this shutdown around the world, and parts of the world are still really struggling. But in the city here, it's summer, people's masks are coming off, people are ready for a little playful mischief.
Yeah.
And you know, I had the sense that your work would be such a wonderful fit for Englewood in the summer.
Yeah.
And then this week, Avenue Magazine showed up with one of your murals on the front cover and inside as a part of their summertime edition.
That's
so
right.
there you go.
You know, that's something that, you know, having done some work in Victoria, like, it was great working there, but the city already has that, you know, energetic, off the beaten path kind of energy. And after starting to work in Calgary a little bit, there's this kind of, you know, gray concrete, like the street art scene wasn't very developed at that point. So we really saw an opportunity here to work, and it's been really amazing, and people have been so kind and told us like that we have really like brightened up the city and added this energy that, you know, has been in Calgary before, but it was really lacking for a while.
Yes, I think I would agree with that. And I'm going to go off script here just a little bit, forgive me, because I think I'd actually like to start with the wall relief sculptures. Because when I was talking with you guys about the beginnings of your practice, and you know, you kind of have some motifs, a style, a recognizable way of creating work at this point, and I wondered where that all started. And you talked to me a bit about grunge and sort of found objects, finding objects and making sculptures with them, and eventually that leading to collage. And these, very much to me, are like little sculptural interventions. And I know that how these have typically been shown is they've been randomly installed in different locations in the city.
Yeah.
And there's one in Sunnyside that I walk by all the time.
There's one just down the street.
And there's one just down the street. So can you talk a little bit about this, the sculptural element as a early start to how you created the aesthetic, the motifs and imagery within your paintings and your murals?
Sure. Yeah, yeah, our collaborative practice really did start through making these sculptures that you're talking about. And we would use reused wood, like found wood and materials.
You mentioned your dad was a shop teacher.
Yeah, yeah.
So you were using
Offcuts.
Scraps
Scraps.
from the students.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. He would bring boxes of this wood home for firewood, and we would just be like rummaging through all these boxes.
Sorting
to
through
find,
like yes, no, yes, 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 no. And then the process of creating the sculptures was to kind of choose a color palette loosely and then paint all the shapes and then have them laid out, you know, normally on the ground, a large space, and then just spend a day or an evening working through and just creating one piece at a time. So it was very much like intuitive.
Yeah, in kind of thought process, like associating, you know, the like building the compositions like organically.
Out of the wood. And these are much more recent.
Yeah, these pieces, we really tried to refine them for a gallery setting. Like we hid the way they're constructed is a bit hidden, as opposed to like the work we have out in the public can be a bit more raw. And the placement of the pieces in the public space is interesting too. Like they are seemingly placed at random, but often we find a location that kind of resonates within a community, or like it's kind of like a cool spot, or there's a park, or just something, an interesting space, and then we kind of like to mark that space.
We see it as an offering, you know, to the community that it's in, or, you know, a visual poem to kind of, recognize an interesting space. But more recently we kind of have moved away from using the found shapes and to creating our own shapes intentionally, but the process remains the same of like having this repertoire of shapes that we kind of condense into certain different sculptures.
And that has translated into, as we continued to work, we realized that we could use that process of collage with like 2D designs, paper collages. We started developing, and then those collages started to form the basis of like mural designs.
Yes.
Like that.
And the murals, I mean, I'm looking around the space here, and this is the first time that you've had like a whole gallery full of work with no murals involved. And I'm sure that these also have benefited from all of those experiences of all of those murals that you've done, because these are incredibly beautiful resolved pieces. So, yay to you! Like that's fantastic, because you know it's amazing that you have this work out in these public spaces that lots of people can enjoy. But this is a whole new foray, because really these are destined for much more private worlds. Even in a corporate world, it's more private than on a light post in Sunnyside, right?
Yeah.
Or on the side of a building around the corner in Ramsey.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is an interesting observation in light of one of the things you talked about with me was that within all of these paintings, there are several dichotomies. And that idea of public and private could be one of those.
Yeah.
Is that,
Sure.
is that part of your thinking when you make work at this scale on a canvas like this?
Yeah, well, I think our intention for our art, is to have people live with it in their daily lives, you know? And whether it's in their home or on the corner of their block and they walk by it every day, it's as long as people are it's becoming a part of the fabric of people's daily lives. And that's really interesting.
Especially with a lot of the abstract work we've done, we always kind of say that it's the people who are experiencing it daily. They're like giving meaning to the work. Their experiences with it are, makes it what it is. And yeah, I think that's true for anyone owning a piece of art or experiencing it daily.
It can grow with you in your life.
Let's focus on this piece for a minute.
Sure.
Because I wouldn't mind just starting to talk more specifically about the work. And this one's called Charged Room, 2021, acrylic on canvas. These are all acrylic on canvas.
Yeah.
The sculptures are acrylic on wood, right?
Yeah.
This is the largest piece in the exhibition. Is this the largest canvas that you've done before?
It's actually not. We've done some commissions that are a little bit bigger than this.
It's a really great example of another one of the dichotomies you talk about where you have the combination of exterior spaces and interior spaces.
Yeah.
So can we jump into that a bit and
Two-part question.
and two-part question. Interior, exterior, but I also want you to start talking a bit about, because this all looks so much like a paper collage to me. All of these really clean, hard edges and the way things are laying on top of each other. So an expansion on the motif of the collage in your work, but I'm also interested in why you're doing this interior-exterior combination.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the process of creating the work and the design. So as we started to paint murals, we at the beginning we were just kind of like coming up with designs on the spot as we were painting, and while that was fun, it's not the greatest idea to make creative decisions with on the wall, So we developed this way of creating designs for our murals, and it is through paper collage, and that's just because it allows for the collaborative process. We can both stand in front of a work and move paper around and come up with the designs. So the end result has a lot to do with the process of creating the work, and since we started these collage designs, they're very 3D. As the paper sits around a lot, it gets bent, it has a life of its own, and we notice the shadows, and a lot of people notice the shadows, and we've always thought it would be really interesting to paint the shadows as part of the design and not just flatten it out. So this is the first time that we've really gone for it. We actually started using an airbrush, and it's the only time that it felt right to really go for the shadows, just because the airbrush incorporates it so flawlessly. So they really look a lot like the collage designs. The airbrush really lets us replicate that 3D element that you see in a collage.
So before we move on to the interior-exterior, because you just dropped the collage designs in there. So this started with paper collage, perhaps, with you both having hands on the paper, and it being a great way to collaborate together and have two artists create an image. But now you're also working digitally.
Yes.
So how does that work?
So I think just having done so many of these paper collages, we know where the shadows are going to go. We know how that looks. So we're able to move that into a digital realm, but it allows us to kind of manipulate the shadows a little bit and maybe put them where they're not expected, to leave some out. And the digital design has really just expanded the creation of the designs. And it also has added this element of like things looking a little bit digital, but they're all hand painted.
I think we really, in our practice, a constant thing is that we change up the way we're working, and we're trying to grow or try new things. And so, yeah, it's kind of like a full circle. Like we're using collages, drawing, digital, like all those things kind of go back and forth between those different ways, and we're like creating new ways to make designs. And so, yeah.
So for part two of my question, why don't we move over to inside looking out and outside looking in?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
These two pieces right over here.
Sure.
Because, okay, so this is outside looking in?
That's inside looking
That's
out.
inside, okay, so I'm inside and this is a window? Or how is,
I guess this is kind of like, the vase is on the inside, as a vase would be, and then this is kind of the window we saw, looking out to kind of an urban environment.
And this is the perfect example to also bring up the cairn, which is the man-made stacking of stones, right? Or human-made, shall we say? Men. And in this one, you've got a sort of traditional cairn stacking of stones, which I understand is something that's been inspired just from your river walks and observing your environment. But then you've actually duplicated it with this vase in a man-made form, which I think is kind of interesting. So yeah, that's a springboard.
Yeah, I think, well, like these pieces were all created within this past year, and I think, the whole world has been living in their spaces, in their interior spaces, becoming very familiar with.
And also have had
spaces.
opportunity to familiarize themselves with their neighborhoods, to have the time to like go for a walk every night.
And going for a walk is one of the few things we were able to do.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And a bonus if you happen to have a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bonus for the dog.
So I think on a lot of our personal walks, like there's so much beauty just in the everyday experiences, like the sun setting at a certain time and walking through a pathway in the forest, or.
And in the Bow River Valley, we're so lucky to have this, the beautiful river, and everything that comes with that, the river rocks, the plant life, the animals. It's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But is this the designer in you, Rachel?
Yeah.
Because I want to own this.
Yeah.
I want that vase.
Yeah. I think we like to incorporate, things like the bike rack that you see in this painting, and the, elements of design that we pick out. Maybe I see it in someone's window when I'm going for a walk, or see the way that someone has stacked some rocks in their front yard. Like a lot of these paintings are kind of paying homage to the way that people arrange things, and the way that people decorate their spaces, interior and exterior. it's just it's a really cool part of human nature.
I want to own the bike rack as well as the vase, because that's also the best looking bike rack I've ever
I think it would look really good out front.
It would look amazing out front. These are also two great works to talk a bit about this. In these pieces, this looks like loose netting. In some of the other pieces we'll look at, it's much more like structured tiles. And then you've also got the fencing with the same kind of a grid. Can you talk a little bit about where that comes in? Is that just another aesthetic attraction, or is there something more?
I think, yeah, it's definitely another one of those things we were attracted to, like noticing fencing that's been, someone's cut a hole in it, or like, there's all these things that tell stories, you know. We walked by a fence that had been maybe damaged, and it cast these beautiful, organic, like abstract shadows that like are reminiscent of these, you know, these tangled grids. And we also have been interested in looking at like construction materials, just like the materials that our world is built out of. Like we've included cinder blocks
And even a lot of the color palettes, like this bright orange, bright yellow, you might see as like marking construction sites. The wiring, the meandering wire that you know, is maybe carelessly left at a construction site, that type of thing.
Amazing. This piece here is, okay, you probably know off the top of your hand what it's, what it's called.
Called Top of the Line.
Okay, so it's got the graphic tile looking. A brilliant man pointed out to me that there is a retro aesthetic about these, and that's just someone who saw the work today, having never heard anything you had to say, and you were just talking about that aesthetic yesterday. So I thought it was wonderful that it was that evident to a blind eye.
Yes.
yeah.
So blind eye to, sorry, you just gave me a look because it was Kelly. But can you talk, because you also were talking about being particularly drawn to some artists in the UK and other parts of the world where you're seeing that kind of aesthetic. So can you talk a little bit about that? And this is a great example.
Yeah, I think there's, you know, how culture sometimes looks to the past, like 20 years, you know, like there's that 20-year kind of period, like the you know, the 80s, 90s were a popular thing, like looking at these early like design programs like Corel, you know, paint, and like the way things were created when we were growing up, and there's a bit of like this nostalgia of like these rudimentary digital designs, and it's just a interesting like feeling you can gather through using these like colors from reference from the past.
Maybe speaking of retro, like Mikhail's dad, his garage is where we have created a lot of these pieces, and he's an interesting person, and he's definitely one of those people who spends time in his space kind of assembling the things around him, and yeah, so that was, you know, being surrounded by that in our studio space. We're so influenced by that. Like a lot of this, like the tiling, like you said, was influenced by his garden space, and he just has lattices hanging everywhere, and there are stacks of random objects, but it's a lot of old stuff. He doesn't buy new things. It's all old, antiques, or just found things, untreated, you know, that type of thing, which there's just so much inspiration in.
I think it speaks to like both of our work from school or like our past individual practices where we were both using found objects and collected materials that really tell a story through the way that they've been used in the object's life or whatever. So I think there's a connection there with like this feeling of looking to the past, or you know, in this current work. I think there's a through line to our past work of trying to find the stories and that objects could tell.
Is it a different feeling for you completing an exhibition like this with works like this than completing a brand new mural?
It's well, mural painting is a very physical endeavor, and you're really like creating it on site. So it is a difference for sure. Both are very rewarding though. Like our time in the studio was like amazing, like, because we really needed this show to happen for us to dedicate that time.
Yeah, and I think, you know, some of our favorite mural works that we've done have been maybe like a wraparound kind of retaining wall, along with maybe like a cube in a parking lot, and so finding a way to like marry these spaces, and I think that's something that we enjoy doing, is like making a body of work at once, and it all speaks to each other. You know what I mean? And it's the same with some of these murals that we get to do, where we get to use our sensibility of like, you know, like
of the space,
using the space that it's created in, and you know, like I think we both just really enjoyed making a body of work that all speaks to each other, and we don't always get that in a mural. It's just kind of like one thing, but this was like we were telling a story.
I couldn't be more pleased. I just want you to know that, because when I asked Mikhail and Rachel if they would be willing to do this exhibition, none of this work was made.
No. Yeah.
And so I just had faith. I just had faith that from what I had seen, that you were going to make a beautiful exhibition. And you have, like in spades.
Thank
so
you.
Anyone who comes in here and chooses to acquire one of these pieces, I feel like they're getting this incredible moment in time when you made this passage from this public work that you've been making into this opportunity to really delve into your fine art practice.
Yeah, and it really is like a takeoff, you know, from now.
A launching point.
A launching point, like, you
yeah,
know.
there's so many ideas that have come up through making this work. Like we have a lot more to do in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move over, because talk about a different palette from what we've just been looking at. The energy of green with the brightness of yellow, number 1 and number 2, are over here. And I mean, and these two just feel so organic to me. And when I first looked at them, I thought about like heat for some reason, and Mexico and arid climates. And you said they were inspired more by the Badlands.
That's right.
So can you talk about these? Because they're very, I mean, while the techniques are similar,
Yes.
these are very different looking pieces from everything else we've looked at.
Yeah. We were like a connection of all this work is this kind of static, airbrushing, cloud-like,
This.
kind of cerebral texture, and we really wanted to push that to its limit, or like push it in that direction with these paintings, and see what would happen. And it to me, it really does like have this like inner mind landscape, like dreamscape kind of feeling to them. But we were also and it's a kind of a similar feeling you get when you're in the Badlands. Like you enter from the prairies down into this valley, and it's like this other alien kind
It's
of
like
world.
20 degrees hotter than where you were
Right.
5 minutes ago, and it's this really unique ecosystem that we're so lucky to have in Alberta, and I think we didn't even realize how inspired we are by that landscape, and then when we've been there many times, but this one time we went really intentionally to kind of pick things out, and yeah, these paintings just were really obvious to us to make
From that experience.
from that experience.
Yeah.
And these two smaller works, they're the most similar to these
Yeah, we
in the
made these
exhibition.
first, and then we made the green ones after. Yeah.
And this is meandering, red meanderer, green meanderer.
Yeah.
So you're just naming, who comes up with the names?
We're talking about it constantly.
Do you fight about
as
it?
we're working.
Come
No,
on.
we don't fight about it. We fight about other things.
If it's not working, then it's like, no, maybe not that. But if one of us comes up with something good, we usually run with it.
And a meander is like a part of a river that's really windy, kind of gets smaller, and you know, we know all about that here in Alberta, so that's the inspiration for that.
And going
Title.
for a walk too, right?
Totally,
like a
yeah.
meander.
Yeah.
This shape here,
The agglomerate, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me what that is.
Like an aggregate kind of terrazzo type thing. I guess it's also like these forms can be like metaphors maybe for a person or something. Like we're all made of an aggregate of different memories and connections to different things, but they kind of all coalesce into who we are as people.
Yeah, many small things make a whole, and just the beauty and detail that you find in nature.
Well, and I love the way you talk about these. These two works are very much nature works, and yet there's nothing, like can I say they're unnatural representations of nature? Like
Yeah.
they're so influenced by your cut paper collage, your digital design process, the airbrushing.
Yeah.
They're so influenced by those things that they begin to take on this, I don't want to use the word plastic because it's not plastic, but this looks nothing like nature. And yet
Yeah.
I look at this and I see the piled rocks, the cairns. I see there's something organic growing, and a moon or the sun, I can't tell, but it seems dark. And I wouldn't have read that as a river, but it's a river. So I just think that's a really interesting contrast.
Yeah, I think since moving to Calgary, or back to Calgary, I should say, we're a little bit resistant to maybe representing nature as it's done very frequently here. So
Like realism.
like realism, you know, the nature that's all around us. You know, we don't really want to represent that as it is, because it is all around us. So I think through our abstract work that we've done in the past, we've gained the sensibility to make work that's a little bit more based in reality, but that still really holds this abstract spirit.
They're great.
Thank you.
I'm not allowed to pick favorites though, so I'm not going to say that. Okay, let's move over to certain stack number 1 and 2. And they're in that order, right? That's number 1 and that's number 2?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they are. I love this palette. This is slightly different than every other piece in the exhibition, with this really incredible tealy blue, and then this rusty color and the oranges. Can you talk a little bit about these two?
Yeah, we switched up the colors a few times in making
These were like yeah, that's true. These were designed only through paper collage right at the beginning of our process, and Mikhail's right. They started off quite different in color, but they, to me, kind of are reminiscent of our some time in Mexico, like the terracotta orange and teal.
Let's talk about Mexico. So you did a mural in Mexico City. When was that? Because like that's like the goddaddy of mural world, right? Like.
Yeah, that was in 2018.
Yeah, we were there 2017 into 2018. And yeah, we shout outs to Hector, who might be on the tuning in, but
that's someone that Mikhail met actually at the BAM Center in 2008. Yeah, so 10 years later, Mikhail had been connected with him throughout those years, but 10 years later, we went to Mexico City and Hector facilitated us, making that mural and several others in Mexico City.
How many?
We painted 2 in Mexico City, and then we were traveling around Mexico for a few months, and we were
to different states. So
we painted in Oaxaca, a number of murals there, and in San Miguel, we painted. Yeah.
Did you feel kind of like a spirit connection with like Diego Rivera and the amazing Mexican muralists of the past?
We were able to go to all the museums and see some really amazing murals, but we were also reading a lot of the history. Like Rivera is like maybe the most well known, but there's like
many others.
I think Rufio Tamayo is our favorite. He has a kind of a more abstract, futurist.
And of course, the contemporary mural work there as well is very inspirational. There's so many amazing artists making murals, making work in Mexico, and the culture, just really allows it and supports it, and that was inspiring to see that.
We went there right after, like we started painting murals here, a few of them, and then we planned this trip to Mexico over the winter, so we were able to continue painting murals down there. So we were like, we really like treated it as a like our own residency, and we were traveling around making art and painting murals like continually for
which
like
we
a
don't
year.
have that opportunity here because it's snowing and freezing.
Yeah,
Of course.
so it was really like cut our teeth going down to Mexico and being able to, because it's different there, like you can kind of just knock on someone's door and be like, could we paint your wall?
Right.
And they're like, yeah,
Do it.
sure.
Cool. Yeah.
It's a lot
No neighbors
less.
are gonna complain about it.
So
Everyone's on board.
Yeah, it's
That's
a bit.
awesome.
It's more free in some ways there, like in terms of public art and just the culture of making things by hand and is like all the advertisements are hand painted like by these sign painters that bust out these crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really amazing, and we miss our friends down there, and
Hope to
can't
go back.
wait to go back.
Soon. We're near wrap-up time, so I just want to reach out to our audience and before we close, make sure that if anyone has questions for Mikhail and Rachel, that they're shouting those out to us. We're watching for questions if anyone has any. The transition from mural to painting also has a long history, and we know that although Jackson Pollock and all of those bombastic American abstract expressionists would like to take full credit for the power of their movement, that it started with the Mexican muralists.
Absolutely.
So it's exciting and wonderful transition to see you carry your practice into smaller 2D paintings.
Yeah.
And it's got a history too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally does. And they transcribe very well.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, like we painted a few murals while working on these pieces, and you just have deja vu as you're working on a small canvas, because it's the same process, but just with a little bit different tools and at a little bit of a different scale. But
instead of like a huge paint sprayer, we're using like a small airbrush, but
A little smaller
it's a
airbrush.
similar process.
and I think that's kind of what makes our work unique, is that it's based in the process of mural painting. You know, that's how we work. That's how we've grown to work together. So.
Yeah.
So here you go. You have two incredible minds, two incredible talents melding into one powerful force that is Nasarimba. And this is what we get. We've got their beautiful murals all over the city. We have this incredible exhibition of paintings that I'm very proud to have in my gallery. And it's up until August the 15th. So many Calgarians and hopefully people from elsewhere will get in to see the show. We will be posting a virtual tour as well. So what was your friend, Hector?
Yeah.
Hector, if you're listening. There will be a virtual tour on our website so you can see the exhibition virtually. But feel free to come down.
Please come down, see the work in person.
And also, we have an online store. And one of the many reasons that I work with emerging artists, it's rewarding, it's wonderful, they're keen, they have energy, they're sharp, all of those things. Not to imply that established artists aren't. But they're those things. But also, I love working with emerging collectors. And the price points for the work in this gallery are insanely affordable for how amazing this work is. So I invite people who are even remotely interested, look at the store. I think you might be pleasantly surprised. And I'd love to help purchasers and collectors support this young duo as they're stepping into the fine art commercial realm of their practice. So do so, take a look. Is there any questions, Mika? Then I think it's a wrap, unless Mikhail or Rachel, are there anything, any other things you would really like to talk about or throw out there before we wrap up our conversation?
I think just like thank you, Viviane and Mika, for facilitating this show and inviting us here and being such wonderful patrons, and yeah. We
just have really seen this as an opportunity, not only to show people what we've been working on, but to have a time to create and to get our thoughts down, and yeah, it's just been a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, and a pleasure for us as well, a joy to do business with, and I hope lots of people get in to see this. We are having, Rachel and Mikhail will be in the gallery this Saturday. Mika, is that the 10th?
Yep.
This Saturday, the 10th of July, from noon to 4, they may even hang around longer. They'll be here and will be open, doors open, and we hope anyone who's really keen to see them in person and see the exhibition pops down. And thank you so much for joining us.
Looking forward to seeing you. Thank you.